Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay. I wanted to do a video on the Paris Jackson interview with Willow Smith. I said earlier I would do it. Uh, you know, I was saying Father's Day because, like I said, these two girls are the two of the most famous uh, daughters of big famous music slash movie stars. One, the daughter of Willow Smith, and the other, the daughter of Michael Jackson, Paris Jackson. So they have a lot. They had a lot in common in the sense that they grew up, both of them, really under the heavy spotlight scrutiny of the world. Like I said, two of the most famous uh, young girls out there. And usually, this is the show that Jada Pinkett, the mother of Willow Smith, does. Um, like the one last year where she admitted to cheating on Will Smith with August Alsina. But for this one, because the two girls had so much in common, uh, Willow interviewed Paris Jackson. And what I really love about Paris Jackson in this interview is how candid she was about mental health, about her unique experience growing up as the only daughter of the King of Pop and the most famous child that Michael has, because he has two other children, Blanket or B.G. Jackson and Prince Michael Jackson, but the one who really is more famous out of the three of them is Paris, because when he passed away in 2009, it was her that she said that she missed him. And when they were uncovered, finally, it was her that the media gravitated towards. A lot like Willow Smith. Willow Smith is, she has a brother, Jaden. He's pretty well known because he's been in movies with his dad. But she was also, she's more well known in far as the music business. So they had a lot in common and they shared a lot of things. Both of them had struggles with mental health. Both of them uh, had struggles, with suicide, early onset drug addiction. So it wasn't really like an interview. It was more like a sit down between the two young women, and they've known each other since Paris's grandmother visited the set of Hawthorne, where Willow's mom Jada was. That was one of the movies slash shows that Willow's uh, Willow's mom Jada was filming, and it was sort of like these two friends talking, and it was funny because these two girls, one was born in 2000s and one was born in 1999, and they used the word gnarly, and I haven't heard the word gnarly in an in an interview or anybody use that word since like since like before I was even born. But the style of these two is like a really retro style. You know what I mean? Like if you look at the way they dress and the way they speak, it's not the style of two young girls of their age group. They have a much older. They have two girls that two young ladies. Excuse me. That have really old souls. So they might be young in spirit, but they're really old in their years because of the things that they've experienced. They talked a lot about how Paris. Remember a couple of years ago, Paris made that video where she was crying, where she can't really deal with the internet bullying. And I think, based on the interview, that Willow is more equipped to deal with stuff than Paris, even though Willow is a lot younger by Paris for a number of years because of the way Paris's dad had her and her brothers sheltered from a very early age. You know, we saw it in the Martin Bashir documentary in 2003, how they walk around with masks on their face, like Mexican wrestlers or like Afghan women during the time of the Taliban, and nobody knew who they were. I think because Will Smith and Jada kind of eased their kids into the public spotlight, it made it a lot easier. Not tremendously easier, but a lot easier than Michael Jackson's kids. And also because of the controversy surrounding the life of Michael Jackson, how people accused him of child molestation, people accused him of all kinds of things. It made it a lot harder on Paris Jackson than on Willow Smith. But it was interesting uh, how much Paris kind of reminds me of her dad. How her interview style is kind of like her dad. See, Michael's interview style was very. He would tell you the things that he wanted you to know, but he wouldn't tell you so much. He would kind of um, leave a lot on the table. And Paris is kind of like that as well. She is not she is not as direct. She is more direct than her brothers, but she is kind of like her dad, very very to herself and very evasive, and she doesn't really do a whole lot of interviews that much because again she every time they see her, because of the circumstances of her birth and because she may not really be the biological daughter of Michael Jackson, because let's be perfectly honest for a minute to everybody that's Moonwalker fans and fans of Michael Jackson, not to offend, until I'm a fan of Mike or was a fan of Michael Jackson, but I mean, she she doesn't really give off. Neither her brothers really don't give off a Jackson sort of. Yeah, Lisa. Uh, One of the things that she brought up was that I didn't know how many times she attempted suicide, and it was crazy because one comment that she made that really stood out to me was when that she said, "Given my luck, I would be one of those who attempted suicide and failed, and would end up horribly injured and still living." And it really just broke my heart in a way because I saw how much her life really mirrors that of her late father's. How much they both suffer in a way because they are sensitive souls, and they both kind of allow criticism of themselves by the public to get to them. I think that one of the ways that uh, Michael Jackson, his brothers survived, and her brothers, Blanket and Prince, and Michael's brothers, her uncles and aunts, even Janet to an extent. is they really are not like Paris and Michael. They don't really let the criticism get to them. I mean, a couple of years ago, I mean, not a couple of years ago, like last year, when all the Gorilla Glue memes were coming out with Jermaine Jackson, people were making fun of him heavily. But you didn't hear about Jermaine on TV, you know, crying or being rushed out of being rushed out of airports by paparazzi or attempting suicide or being heavily addicted to drugs or alcohol. You never really hear that about Paris, his brothers, Prince, or Blanket. You heard it about Michael, and you only really heard about Paris. You don't of all the other Jackson Jackson family, they face criticism all the time. Janet Jackson, when she had her wardrobe malfunction, faced criticism a lot. She faced criticism even when she was, you know, a couple of years ago when she became, an Orthodox Muslim and she had that kid. But they don't take it so personal. Paris took it so personal to a point where she's even scared when she hears loud noises because of the paparazzi. Michael Jackson took it so personal that he completely he was destroyed by it. And the media is relentless. They destroyed the life of the father and they nearly destroyed. What I think about the grandmother, Lisa, I don't know. I think that that you know then once they got a hold of her, they kind of wanted to thrust her into the light in the limelight in the same way that they did, uh, you know, their other their other children. You know, and I just don't think I don't think the she made the adjustments all that well. At least based on what she yeah, the religion is something that I wanted to bring up too, and that's not something that I wanted to um, really bring up. Lisa, thank you for reminding me of that. Um, that religion that is something that is very contributed, I think, to the mental breakdown of both Paris Jackson and Michael Jackson, because on top of being one of the most famous people in the world, possibly the most photographed human being in all of history, and being the daughter of that person, and having that tremendous um, load of celebrity, she also had to deal with this religion that is very strange. Um, I always found the Jackson connection to that religion, the Jehovah's Witnesses religion, kind of strange too, because it's like from what I know of them, they're not allowed to watch movies. They're not allowed to listen to worldly music, and they're completely controlled by that council in Flatbush, Brooklyn. So, being that it was so restrictive, both in her upbringing and in the upbringing of Michael, it was kind of weird that became that the Jackson family became even famous. Selena's family was the same, you know, the same religion and the same faith, and people have come out and criticized. But I don't think that Selena family was that much strict like the Jackson family. But it's just kind of weird because, like, there is this guy Chris Stuckman, but he makes videos here on YouTube. He talks about movies. He's a popular YouTuber that is a movie critic, and he discussed his battles with that particular religion. Lisa, and I just felt like Paris. She kind of felt like she was being straitjacketed in that too. Isn't that the sense you got? You know, she is a free spirit. You know, and on the on the one hand, you're telling me that you have to be devoted to this particular religion that is kind of a religion that kind of, and I don't want to criticize anybody's faith, you know, 'cause I don't want to be flagged, but it's kind of a religion that kind of takes the joy of life. Because other religions, you know, mainstream Christianity, Islam, Judaism, even Buddhism, Hinduism, they have holidays. They have days that you can be festive about things. In this religion, in this um, group, Jehovah Witness religion, they don't have any holidays. They don't have. They're not allowed to have any friends. They're not allowed to have any associations outside of the Jehovah Witness Bible Watchtower Society. And Michael Jackson was completely against this against this kind of faith. He left the faith early on. He was devoted because of his mother, but he was not devoted later on in his life. But I know he was kind of devoted until like his 30s because he used to actually go knocking on doors like they're known to do, but they all have to do it as the duty of their religion in a disguise. Because he, on the one hand, he was one of the most famous people ever. On the other hand, he can't really be famous. You know, so on the one hand, you're telling me I can't really have friends outside of my own religion. I can't really do things outside of my own religion. But on the other hand, you know that my circumstances are different than other people in my religion because of who I am. And I'm who I am because you and the family made me to be that. You know, Michael didn't make her to be that, but her grandfather made them be that. And the grandmother made them be something else, the complete opposite. Both very toxic. You know, you don't really want your whole life on public display, but you don't at the same time want your whole life being confined and not being allowed to have friends and not going. You want to be a normal person, but neither circumstance for Paris was ever normal, or for Michael Jackson, her father. You know what I mean? So yeah, you know, I didn't really get that far. At least I saw it. I didn't see the whole thing, but I didn't see the question and answer period. But I had to go back and look at it again. But um, one thing I will say about Paris is that she is very open with the fan base. You know, her fan base and the fan base of her father. You know, and she's just a beautiful person. But I think that she allows herself to be affected like her father with this kind of BS. of publicity. I didn't the song. I didn't see the song. It's, um, I had to refresh my memory on that. That's why I've used to help me. I saw, you know, part of the interview, parts of it, the parts where uh, it really, struck me. The parts about mental health, basically. Yeah, her music. I've known her music. I did a video on her music way back. I think going to the folk style and going to, and again, not to bring race into it, but going to a whiter, like folk music, or whiter folk music was the best option that she could have had because um, a lot of people in the R&B or hip hop fan base was never going to accept her um, in that fan base. Even when she brought up that a couple of years ago, she brought up that because she was raised by Michael Jackson, that she considers herself as part you know as part of the black race. People didn't like that. So I think going to the folk style of music that she performs in is a better option for her than the R&B road that her family is known for. Just because you know she already doesn't deal well with criticism as is, like I spoke about earlier. So could you imagine, right? But you know for a fact, Lisa, like I was saying earlier, the community doesn't. A lot of people in the community don't really believe that she is the real child of Michael Jackson biologically. So when she said that a couple of years ago, remember when she said it, people didn't like. You know, people like you know Black Twitter, and I'm sorry to say, Black Twitter is a good thing. Could be a good thing sometimes, but it could be very vicious, mean, and hateful. And people in the Black pundit community, like Wendy Williams and other people that cover this kind of celebrity news, were vicious to it. They were saying, oh, how dare you? That's cultural appropriation. They were accusing her of all kinds of things. And knowing that she is already sensitive about this because of the way she looks and because of the controversy surrounding her dad. I don't think I think going to the folk music, and she may like folk music and rock music more than R&B and hip hop. It fits her more than that. So she and her managers made the right kind of the choice, the right kind of decision to go that route. But interesting though, Lisa, Prince, the son, um, he works in videography, and he's just as light skinned and just as mm, doesn't look African American, doesn't look like a Jackson, and he does hip hop and R&B and dance music that the family is known for in videos, and he's not. People don't people say that he's not the true son of Michael Jackson yet too, but he's not as criticized or as drugged through the mud as she was when she said it. And I think it has a lot to do with her gender as well. because the people that run the industry, the entertainment industry, the entertainment gossip industry that is about pop culture type news is mostly women, and seeing as though she looks as she does look, people are going to say, "Oh, well, here she is stepping on the toes of black women or other black models coming in looking, like Caucasian, looking to a white beauty standard, trying to put herself in the category of but above that of black women in the beauty industry, saying that she doesn't really have a legitimate claim to being that, because she doesn't go through the struggles that black women face. But you never really know, because Janet Jackson's son is very fair complected as well. Jermaine Jackson and Tito Jackson have children that are very fair complected as well. Um, Michael Jackson's grandfather was mixed with Native American. So I'm not saying that she actually is the child of Michael biologically. Of course, according to her mother, Debbie Rowe, she is not. Neither is her brother Prince. But it's very possible that with the Jacksons, because of their religion and because of who they are, the closest thing we have in America to royalty, like the royal family in England, they kind of, a lot of what they say publicly could be half true, half not true, half BS. Even Michael Jackson himself, a lot of the rumors in the beginning about him sleeping in an oxygen chamber and all that stuff and having the bones of the elephant man, stuff like that was started by him himself. you know, a lot of the false rumors, not the sexual ones, not the ones about child molestation and all that, but a lot of the ones in the early days, like him sleeping in the bed with the oxygen chamber, started by him himself. They learned from an early age, and they learned this from Barry Gordy, uh, to never really be completely honest with the public. Always throw them off a little bit. Because, like, when they first came out, for example, they weren't really discovered by Diana Ross, but they were put on the album that they was discovered by Diana Ross, the Jackson 5. Mike, who wasn't really 8 years old, he was 10 years old. But they were taught from an early age, always kind of throw the public off and keep them guessing. So, with the Jackson family and people associated with them, you never really know what's really true and what isn't true. And that's what really makes the mystique of Michael Jackson the mystique of Michael Jackson. And that's why I say there will never, and I totally said this before, there will never be another celebrity like on the level of Michael Jackson, because he had such a mystique about him. He never really did interviews. If anybody is comparable today, it's probably Drake. I mean, excuse me, not Drake. Um, yeah, maybe Drake or Beyonce. You know what I mean? Because if you think about it, they never really do interviews. So Paris kind of too is the same kind of way, like her dad and the rest of her family. They don't they don't go out and they don't do interviews every single day. When you do interviews every single day, yeah, Beyonce is on that level. Because you never really know with Beyonce, like Beyonce and even Jay Z, you never really know what's really true or not. You hear this stuff in the media, but who knows? They could be feeding the media lies too. You know, what I mean, just to throw us off as the public. You know, they have that celebrity mystique. A lot of the newer celebrities don't have that because they be on Twitter and stuff. When you're a celebrity, like a big celebrity, you should remain distant from the public. Engage with the public. Let them know that you love them. Because, like, you ever notice when Michael Jackson would appear in public, he would always wave from a distance. He would never get too close up to the people because he had a mystique about him. He was kind of like a king, like Queen Elizabeth and all them. You see them, they always wave from a distance. Like you want to let the people know you're close, but not too close. You want to let them know a little bit something about you, but not too much something about you. So they maintain a distance, and they kind of throw the people off about what's really true and what's not. And I feel like all the Jackson family is kind of like that to an extent, because like Paris is the one of the most out front ones out of them all, because she doesn't speak in that meek, soft tone like all the Jacksons speak in that really soft, like shy tone. Even the mother, even Janet, even Latoya, them all. And they probably don't at the family barbecues or the family get-togethers. They probably don't really speak that way, but in front of the public, they do. Because again, the mystique. But I think Paris is a little bit different because she didn't she didn't really grow up around it in the public eye. She was shielded from the public eye. But when she got a little taste of it, it, it kind of destroyed her because she didn't really know how to handle it. You know. But yeah, Lisa, Beyonce is similar. Because again, they were groomed from an early age to be that way. Beyonce was by her dad too. Like she was kind of like a Michael Jackson. But I say Drake is kind of on that, and I know you disagree, Lisa, but Drake is kind of on that level too because you never really see him. He, he doesn't do interviews. He doesn't do interviews at all. Did you ever see him Twitter feed or any of that stuff? You would never like. People didn't even know he had a son until it was totally it was totally disagree. I mean, it was totally exposed by Pusha T. Like I think even as me a fan of him, I've only seen him do one interview, and it's not for the Breakfast Club or Drink Champs or any of them low class type websites. It's for the big websites. So Paris is kind of like that. She good at it. She'll give Willow Smith a professional interview. She'll give certain press people a professional interview. But you gotta be selective because as the daughter of the king of pop, you are going to face scrutiny and you're going to be asked more questions by the mainstream press about your dad who died years ago than about your own self. you, know, you know what I mean? So, and I think, that's good. I don't agree with like celebrities today, like the Cardi B's and stuff, you know, taking to Twitter and stuff and really interacting or letting the fans really know what is going on with you. Because even when I do my videos here on YouTube, I tell you guys a little bit about myself, but not so much. And I'm not even a famous celebrity, but you just want to keep your private business private, and you know it's your choice to reveal what you want to reveal. And I always kind of like that about Michael because he he understood one thing about him as a Virgo. He understood media manipulation. I don't think his daughter really understands that to a great degree, and that's why it really gets to her. It got to him too, but it didn't really get to him until they started really coming at him with heavy criminal allegations. Like back in the day, before they came out with the molestation stuff, they would just say he was weird, and he would accept that he was kind of weird, or he would let them think that he was unorthodox because they never really heard about him having women friends or men friends or any kind of sexuality whatsoever. And when they couldn't really pinpoint it because they hadn't seen him with a man, a grown man or a grown woman. They started to make stuff up because if the media doesn't know about it, they will completely make stuff up to sensationalize you. Like, and nobody believed him about the vitiligo, but the vitiligo stuff, that's all true. Because when he came out, autopsy photos showed that he had the vitiligo patches. They just thought that he was bleaching his skin to be considered more white. And I think that has a lot to do with the vitriol that she faced, the backlash that she faced, because a lot of people in communities of color never really forgave her dad for what they perceive as turning his back on the culture and not really giving a damn about the culture at large. But that really wasn't true. Um, he was heavily involved with the Million Man March. He did the song for Get on the Bus. He did a lot of stuff for African American charities. But publicly, the media would make it seem like he didn't care about his race, or he was ashamed of his race. And as recently as last year, when the Neverland documentary came out, other famous black celebrities like Oprah, who was friends of him, completely threw him under the bus. And, you know, to his face in a 93 interview, she was one of the lucky ones. Oprah, like I said, he didn't really do interviews, but he did the interview with her in 1993. She was one of the lucky ones to get an interview with her when nobody got no interviews with him, when nobody got no interviews with him whatsoever. She was one of the lucky ones. And he did something with her in 93 where she got most of the ratings that she ever got up to that point. Because Oprah, prior to that interview with Michael Jackson, she used to kind of be like every other regular talk show celebrity, like Jenny Jones, Richard Bay, um, Donahue. They would have like Jerry Springer. They would have regular people on there with crazy stories. But because of him, she got to be known as the one who interviews the big celebrities. So, as recently as last year, when she did the thing with Finding Neverland, she completely threw her friend under the bus. And one thing I always say, and Alicia knows that I say this too, when a friend sticks up for you, you stick up for that friend. You don't throw that friend under the bus because loyalty. So he kind of brought Oprah to the dance and she threw him under the bus, after he died in the name of protecting survivors of child molestation. All the meanwhile having complete loyalty to people like Harvey Weinstein, that it was well known in a Hollywood community that he was doing the stuff that he was doing to these women. So she threw her friend under the bus. Trump, say what you want about him. Yeah, he's a racist. Yeah, he wasn't a really good president. He was kind of a dumbass, but he always stuck up for Michael Jackson. Whenever somebody would say something about Michael Jackson, you would completely always stick up for him, say, no, that wasn't true. You know, what I mean? Later, the daughter Paris came out against Trump's policies, as a president, but as a friend of her dad's, she always defended him. Wilson, yeah, yeah, Lisa, go back and look the videos. Trump would always stick up for Michael Jackson, and they were good friends, from the early days. People said that his marriage to Lisa Marie Presley was not for real, that they didn't really love each other. Trump stood up for him. It was him and Trump went to this kid's house. Um, Ryan White, that famous kid uh, that Michael Jackson wrote the song for, "Gone Too Soon," uh, died of HIV. Trump and Michael Jackson went to the kid's house together and paid the kid a dying, a, a, you know, paying tribute to the kid. So even though Paris, like everybody, disagreed with Trump's policies as far as like being a politician, as far as personally sticking up for her dad, he always stuck up for him. They they were friends since the 80s. They did business together and stuff. So I mean, not that Trump is a good person. Again, like I said with the Jehovah Witness stuff. Okay, he wasn't a good person, but sticking up for a friend, an old time friend, you know that you knew from back in the day, and kind of the same kind of person played that media manipulation. Trump knew how to do that too, and Michael also knew how to do that in a different way because Trump was more abrasive, Trump was more mean, Trump was more in your face. Michael was more shy, laid back, and meek. But they would never really, in the old days anyway, before Trump became a politician, he would never let you really know anything really about him. All you knew about Trump back in the day is that he was rich. you know, that, that he was some rich guy from New York, and he knew a lot of celebrities, and Michael Jackson was one of them. And like I said, he always stuck up for himself. Oprah didn't stick up for him, and Michael and Michael Jackson did also. Well, he wasn't alive when Trump became president, so I don't know how he would have acted, but growing up as a Jehovah's Witness too, I don't think that Michael Jackson was allowed to. I mean, really allowed to or really be interested in politics. He was interested in making the world a better place through peace, love, harmony, and loving his fellow man. But as far as like elections and stuff like that, I think because of his upbringing, he really had no interest in stuff like that. You know what I mean? Because they're not seeing in that religion, they're not allowed to vote in elections. You know, and when he would meet with presidents, it was kind of like Billy Graham, or kind of like what I said about Martin Luther King. He would meet with them all. He wouldn't just meet with some. Okay, I'm only going to meet with just Democrats or Republicans. You know, he met with Ronald Reagan. He met with George H.W. and he met with Clinton. He performed at Clinton's inauguration in '93. So I think he was kind of not a political person. Paris, she's a little bit different. She is, you could tell that she is heavily engaged in politics on the Democratic side because she's a member of the LGBT community, and she spoke out against the Dakota pipeline in it was I think 2017 when they were running the Dakota the oil pipeline to the Native American reservation, which was a Democratic cause. So she kind of does speak out against social justice issues. So she's more, like I said, she is different than her family, different than her dad, because you never really hear her family really say anything. Not just Michael, but you never really hear the family say anything really political. You know, they don't really touch on that again because of their upbringing, probably Jehovah's Witnesses, and also being part of Motown in the early days. They was taught not to be Motown artists were taught not to be polit- not to engage in politics because their philosophy was you want everybody to like you. Despite their political views, you want everybody to dance to your music, you want everybody to buy your records. So if you come out with a political song or a political stance, like some Motown artists later did, like Stevie Wonder and Marvin Gaye, you run the risk of alienating half of your audience. So seeing as though the Jackson Five knew that and understood that, and being Jehovah's Witnesses and probably not being engaged in it anyway, we're not really knowing anything about it. For example, when they went to go sing the national anthem back in the day in the '70s, you know, they did not know the words. They didn't even know the words to the national anthem. So Michael Jackson, he carried that in his life, always being able to stay kind of distant away from politics and not really taking a side, really conservative, liberal, not he wasn't a political type figure, heal the world and stuff like that. Uh, yeah, I guess that's kind of social justice type stuff. But who wouldn't agree with heal the world? Whether, despite of their political views or how they aim to achieve that or get to that level, they would still agree that you know the world needs to be healed. So I think that's one of the major differences. And the Smith family, going back to the interview, I know I went off the beaten path, but the Smith family is very political, and you know that they are heavily democratic. They speak on political issues, especially Jada Pinkett, being that she was friends with Tupac. I'm sure the kids are heavily political and very educated, well educated on political issues, different than Paris Jackson and the way her family grew up. And it's kind of true too, even with other Jehovah Witnesses celebrities. You never really heard Prince, Jehovah Witness, really speak out on politics. Selena didn't really speak out on that kind of stuff. Sherry Shepherd, famously, who was a famous Jehovah's Witness, former Jehovah's Witness, and she converted. When she was on The View, you could tell that she didn't really know all that much about what some of these women were talking about because they don't grow up really in that vein of political know-how and political consciousness the way that we do. They grow up in a secluded type world, you know. So stuff we might take for granted, like how they don't know that. They don't because they don't grow up in the society that we grow up in. Kind of like really Orthodox Hasidic Jewish people that I live around in my neighborhood. If you were you were to ask them, well, they might know who the president is, but who was the president in 1970 whatever? They wouldn't know. But I know I always get off the topic, Lisa, and I'm sorry about that. But you know, my point is that people grow up different, you know, different religious beliefs that they don't really pay attention to that. But as far as the interview, uh, yeah, I like the interview. I think it was pretty candid for what Paris Jackson is known for. But I don't think that through this interview that she should put herself out there that much. I know her dad's anniversary is coming up on the 25th. Um, it'll be like 11 years now since her dad passed away, so that's probably another reason why she did this interview. But I like that the two girls sat down together rather than Jada Pinkett. Um, I thought it was a pretty good interview. So, what did you think? Yeah, June the 25th. This is yeah, the anniversary of his passing. Um, his passing so shook everybody because they didn't think. I remember, the day he passed away. I didn't think. I mean, obviously, we know that Michael Jackson is a human being. And as human beings, we all we all died. We all have our time to go. But he was so famous that you kind of thought he was never gonna die. You know what I mean? So, um, and the kids, you know, when you saw the Martin Bashir interview, you kind of thought, well, you kind of felt sorry in a way for them that they were so secluded. But you understood. People now, people that are normal people, adopt that same philosophy. With regards to social media, where they don't even post their kid. kids on Facebook. So the way that, or any other social media website, the way that Michael kind of thought about his kids' privacy is the kind of way that a lot of people think today. Just because I'm sure he understood how kids are exploited, especially in the Hollywood world. But anyway, Lisa, thanks again for your input. And guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. And like I said, Lisa, I appreciate it. I know I go off the path sometimes, but I speak freely. I don't speak with a script. I don't read stuff off of paper. I just speak freely to you guys. Anyway, peace. Love you. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell.